Over the past year, I've been trying to get to the root of my gut health problems. I've seen doctors, tried diets, dietitians, all these things in order to fix my gut and my digestive health, if that makes sense. I wanted to share my experiences because starting out, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I never really ate like healthy, but I don't think I was like unhealthy eating. I just haven't been like that conscious. I've never really done dieting before or like supplements and stuff like that. So it was a lot to take in, and I was really like hesitant to be trying to like eat healthy because I don't want to be one of those like health nuts that's like my only snacks are organic banana chips and peanuts. But you know, this is where we found ourselves. I don't think it has to be this way for everybody. Doing the low FODMAP diet was a very extreme step, and that's something I want to go into if I think it's for everybody, because I don't think it is. And going to doctors is obviously a luxury that some people don't have. And I honestly feel like the most of the reason that I was finding that doctors helpful is getting prescriptions. I don't think that doctors know you because you only get like short appointments with them. So it's impossible for them to know exactly what is happening with you. But if you need a diagnosis or something, IBS is something that's only diagnosed like as a default because your symptoms aren't explained anything else. So that's that. Let's get into it. Starting at the beginning of this year, I remember writing in my New Year's resolutions that if my digestion and like stomach issues got any worse, that like I need to see a doctor. It's something I've never really done for my like gut health and issues. But it got to that point where I was just feeling sick every time I ate food. Every time I sat down for a meal, I needed about like an hour or so afterwards to just kind of like lie down. And it was just like this kind of like painful, gassy feeling. And I was like, that is not something I want to live my life feeling. And to be fair, I think it coincided with a lot of stress that I was feeling. It coincided with travel, a loss of a pet, and a lot of other stuff was happening. So I was feeling like very anxious, very like in pain whenever I ate food. And then that was also making me in turn more anxious. So it was just this really bad cycle, but it ended up with me deciding that I wanted to get some sort of a diagnosis or see if it's something worse going on by talking to a doctor. At first, however, when I saw my doctor, her only advice was basically go on the low FODMAP diet and see if that helps your symptoms. And the low FODMAP diet is a 9-week, basically scheduled out diet where you start with a month-long, vaguely, completely cutting out every FODMAP from your diet. And then one at a time for the next 9 weeks, you introduce one at a time and see which ones cause symptoms for you. I took longer because there was times where like I couldn't be testing like a food or I was out of town. So I ended up being on that diet for quite a while, like a bit over 3 months. And when I say starting out was really difficult, I would recommend you slowly build up recipes before you literally start the 100% like cutting phase. But I didn't know what to make that was low FODMAP because I was never really used to cooking beforehand. I bought a lot of like frozen entrees, like pre-cooked and pre-seasoned chicken because I was terrified of cooking raw chicken. And so when it came to the FODMAP, all I was eating was like carrots, chicken with salt, pepper, and lemon, and rice. But there's a lot more that you can eat. It's just knowing those recipes. That's the real challenge. So that is why I started seeing a dietitian. I wanted to learn from her because she was familiar with the low FODMAP diet, like what snacks she thought would be helpful, what meals she had ideas of. And she kind of gave me this prescription to start eating higher fiber foods. So that was something else that I introduced into my low FODMAP challenge as well. I continued on the low FODMAP diet until I realized that red meat was also something that was upsetting my stomach. So I completely cut red meat out of my diet, and that is something I've continued on. I'm afraid I have to go over what FODMAPs are, but I don't want to be like a sciencey person because I don't really know that either. But FODMAPs are basically these fermental oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. Polyols, yes. You're in science class today, and I'm really impressed that I remembered what that stood for. But basically, it's these complex sugars that take a bit of extra time to break down in your gut. My gut, I guess, was not great at breaking these down, or still is not great, but that's remains to be seen. So basically what this means in layman's terms is like gluten-free, dairy-free, onion and garlic-free, and I would say like half of fruits are high in FODMAPs and like a few of them are low. And then like half of vegetables are high in FODMAPs and half of them are low in FODMAPs. So it's just figuring out which ones you can have. So for example, something like broccoli is high in FODMAPs, but carrots is low. Green peppers are low in FODMAPs, but red peppers are high in FODMAPs. A lot of fruits are high in FODMAPs because of things like sugars. So those can be high in FODMAPs, like apples, and blueberries are kind of in the middle, kind of low. Bananas are good, but if they're too ripe, then they're high FODMAP. It's this whole complicated situation. At this point, I'm not doing like a full-on FODMAP diet, but the lifesavers that I found were the Popcorners chips. I love those. Specifically the sea salt and the kettle corn you can have. I loved the vegan whipped cream from Whole Foods. That saved me. I bought an ice cream maker and made my own ice cream because a lot of ice cream, even if it's dairy-free, is still high in FODMAPs. There's things like chicory root or corn syrup that you can't have. The Whole Foods branded ice cream that's made with almond milk is good. That one is out of like corn syrup and everything. I also would recommend shopping at Sprouts and Whole Foods more often if you're on the low FODMAP diet, because they have less of things like corn syrup and gluten and stuff like that, and dairy. There's a lot more options for being on a weird diet, even though some of them do cost more. I would also recommend, there was like one singular salad dressing I could eat, and it wasn't great. Fodley barbecue sauce, I think is the brand's name. That was good. The only one I could have for barbecue sauce, even though it didn't taste that great. But vinaigrettes are good. I just can't stand vinaigrettes, so that's not for me. Sensitive marinara sauce, they sell a lot of places, so that is good. I got the Sprouts brand because that's the only one that was like actually affordable. It was like 2 for $7 when I went. So otherwise, they can be like $10 each for pasta sauce, which is crazy. And then the best lifesaver is TikTok, because if you just look up like Trader Joe's low FODMAP snacks, they'll have everything for you. And so other places too. Also, like nuts I couldn't eat and dried fruits I couldn't eat. So like if I was trying to eat healthy, it was really hard. I could eat peanuts, macadamia nuts, and pecans, but a lot of other nuts have FODMAPs in them. It was a really confusing time, and I felt so bad every time I had to like give my dietary restrictions. I was like, I don't even know what's low FODMAP. So that is why I would not recommend the low FODMAP diet unless you are just like testing the waters and trying to learn what is less disruptive for your gut and for digestion. Like if you want to know like what easy to digest foods are, then you can kind of look into it, but just know that like trying to live a 100% FODMAP free life is a nightmare, and it's so bad, and you like cannot eat out anywhere. So I went a while, like 2 months, without eating out at all. The only food I ate out was an acai bowl. And so, but we got through that. If you're going through this, you can get through that. I do think it is helpful in learning what low FODMAP foods are and just kind of like building up this recipe book of things that you know are not going to upset your stomach. It's something that I really appreciate now. I have a lot of like safe foods that I know won't upset me, especially if you're already feeling kind of sick. Like if something upsets your stomach really bad, it can affect you for multiple days afterwards. So during that time, eating a lot of bland foods and low FODMAP foods is really helpful, I've found. Another thing my doctor did was prescribe me Bentyl or dicyclamine. It's something you take just as needed for IBS. It's used for other cases as well, but for IBS specifically, it's just when you have food and it's like upsetting your stomach very like urgently, you kind of need to use a restroom. It's to make those kind of contractions and like pain in your stomach go away. It helps a lot. I don't know for sure if it helps all the way because, I mean, if I take it, then I don't know how bad it would have been otherwise. But I found it really helpful to have just in those situations where you're like, oh no, I just ate something and I'm like out with friends or I'm like traveling and I cannot use the restroom right now. So that is a nice lifesaver. I have realized though, do not dry swallow pills and do not take them laying down because that can cause pain in the esophagus. But I'm just not used to swallowing pills because growing up, I was terrified of it. Now I have to do what I have to do, right? And after the low FODMAP diet, when not all of my symptoms went away, but they did get a bit better, I asked my doctor, what can I do now? Is there anything else? And she suggested a SIBO breath test. Now, SIBO is when there's an overgrowth of bacteria in your intestine. And so when you eat food, it takes longer to digest or there's a lot of gas and extra stuff there. So it's not something they test for right away. I think they rule out everything else first. And if the FODMAP diet doesn't work, you got to do that. So the FODMAP diet did work in some ways. I learned that galactans and lactose are things that I have sensitivities to, but I took the SIBO breath test. It was not that expensive after insurance, but basically it was like you go to the doctors, you sit in a little room, and then every 15 minutes they come in with a little tube, you breathe into it, and they test the like methane and hydrogen levels in your breath after you drink this sugar water. Now, I have like the opposite of hypochondriac because as soon as I'm going into that test, I'm like, oh no, nothing's wrong with me. What? They're going to be like, no, you're all good. And I'm going to be like, I'm crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. But I took that sugar water solution and it upset my stomach. And I was like, I think maybe I do have this. And I was right because a few days later, I get the SIBO hydrogen overgrowth results. And that is something I was really happy because I was like, oh, I'm not crazy. There's something wrong with me and it's something that can be fixed. However, don't get too confident because SIBO can go away, but it can come back. And nobody knows what causes it. It depends on the person because why were there extra bacteria growing in there? I don't know. And I have to figure that out now, which is an even worse problem. And if I get SIBO overgrowth again, who knows? I have to do the same thing over. With SIBO, the medication, it's hard to get approved by insurance and it's expensive. So it's called rifaximin, I believe, and it's about $2,500 for a round. Yes, expensive. And my insurance denied me. And I heard that this is normal because, I don't know, they want you to try other medications first or whatever. Basically, my doctor was like, let's just get this from Canada. So we contacted a Canadian pharmacy and they got it shipped from India. And because of lovely President Trump's tariffs, it ended up being like almost twice as much as it would have been normally because of those lovely tariffs from India. But got it in. It was $300 for one round of the antibiotics. And I took them. They were giant pills to swallow, and I had to take them 3 times a day. So that was kind of a nightmare. But once I was done with 2 weeks of antibiotics, supposedly my SIBO's healed. I don't know the difference, really. I feel like a little bit better. I know that the reaction's not supposed to be like immediate, but I'm also trying to still eat low FODMAP mostly. But yeah, supposedly my SIBO's gone away. One thing about antibiotics though that I did not realize until afterwards is that they do impact your immune system. So while my SIBO has gone away, I have gotten a bad cold that I just got over and also an infection that I had to go to another doctor to get another prescription to heal. But It's a journey, and it's a journey I'm still on, but I think I'm doing a lot better now. And hopefully maybe this is something that is helpful for you to watch. If you are struggling with gut health, if you're struggling with getting like a diagnosis at the doctor or any sort of thing, I know it's like a roller coaster, and I didn't really know that until I got into it. And luckily my roller coaster is not life or death. I know that I can like live with this because my problems have been chronic, and that's why an IBS diagnosis was the first like likely culprit. Oh, I didn't talk about the dietitian. I used Nourish to see a dietitian. She was covered completely by my insurance, so that was nice. However, she was not that helpful. She really was focused on just like eating healthy. So eating more fiber, eating more whole grains, less ingredients, healthy snacking. And while it was helpful and like gave me more ideas for my like recipes that I use often, I just felt like she was like repeating herself a lot. And like I was like focused on FODMAP, and while she was familiar with FODMAP, that wasn't her focus. So I don't know. I feel like I just needed a low FODMAP life coach, if that makes sense. And I didn't have that. And she wasn't really there in that way. She was just like, you got to eat grains. Like people nowadays, all food is processed, and that's why you're all reacting this way. And like everyone has IBS now because the foods are, and I was just like, I don't care why I'm living in the system. Like I gotta live, and everyone else is living in the system and being perfectly fine. People are eating in and out and they don't get sick. I get sick whenever I eat anything. So I was just like this. Now, from the mental health angle of everything, I said earlier that my anxiety was making everything worse. And then it was making my anxiety worse, and like that cycle. But it's something that I still I understand because I'm now like more comfortable with like what's low FODMAP. I have more options that I know, but I was like getting really annoyed whenever I had to eat in the beginning of my diet because I was eating the same thing every day, which is not great. And I was feeling like really kind of mad because I'm like, other people can like eat this stuff and be fine. So why am I in this situation? And the dietitian was saying, you got to eat healthy. Like you have to eat grains, you have to eat snack healthy. But I was like, well, nobody else is and they're all fine. So why do I? So there's these kind of feelings that I think everyone in this situation deals with, along with like the roller coaster of the medical system and insurance not covering your antibiotics that you need. But I just want you to know you're not alone. I also like to think of it like this stuff is healthy for me, so it's kind of good that I'm being forced to confront it the way I am. And I learned the FODMAP rules. I learned the things that I'm most sensitive to. And now I can take that knowledge and I can choose to ignore it sometimes. I really love broccoli. I'm not cutting that out. I'm so sorry. I can make coconut milk ice cream too. It tastes actually better. My handmade ice cream is so good, you guys. You would be so jealous. So that's nice. That's nice. I actually discovered some new things. I got really into meal prepping, and so I have a ton of healthy meals prepared at all times now, and it's really nice. And so there's all these great silver linings of this. I mean, obviously the biggest of all being that I don't feel sick every time I eat a meal now. I can actually like do things. Now, my recommendation for you, if you think you might have some of these gut health issues, is to just look at the FODMAP diet chart and try to look back on like what you've eaten and what has upset your stomach. And if a lot of those are from one FODMAP group, you can try cutting it. And then like trying to see what things upset you, because you might not have to do the FODMAP diet. I already kind of knew that lactose was a problem for me. If I had just cut it out completely, I probably would have seen some improvements. Obviously, the full thing is the most thorough, but that's also a way of doing it if you are intimidated. Another way of helping is like Benefiber, probiotics, and eating healthier and seeing how that affects your gut health. But overall, it is also helpful to see a doctor to get those prescriptions and to see if you might have SIBO, because that's a whole other can of worms. And then all the antibiotics do is hurt me. No, they also healed me as well. But it's fine. I've gotten so many prescriptions in the past year, more than in my entire life. I've seen the doctor more times than I have in my entire life in this past year. However, I'm happy because I feel better. So that is the takeaway. I feel less stressed about food. Even if I get sick, it's like, oh, well, I know what to expect. I know what to do. And that is really the answer. So looking back at this year, after seeing what my New Year's resolution was to see a doctor if things got worse, I can now proudly say that things have gotten better. And hopefully next year, I will just continue to be mindful about what I eat, to heal my gut, and that's about it. So thank you all for watching me overshare about my health. And perhaps if I feel like everyone once in a while has gut problems, digestion problems, no matter like what level you're at, it can always be helpful to implement things like probiotics and fiber into your diet. I mean, healthy eating is for everyone, not even just people who are sick. And it can also help potentially like prevent things like like gut problems. So yeah, eat healthy. But like, don't be like my dietitian and only eat healthy, because life is fun when you have a little candy once in a while, and just ignore the fact that it's made of like nothing but sugar and corn syrup. And oh wait, I can't open these ones. They're really hard to open, the White Rabbit ones, because they got like this one ripped out of the paper coating. I'm trying to like make a cute aesthetic end to my video. Come on. Cheers. Ow, I cannot chew this.